right, Miss Christine.
Hi.
Hi. Are you well? You've got your little trashy, classy situation on your head. Which I
do.
love.
I thought you'd notice. I'm so pleased that you saw my headband.
I know.
This is the one that prompted the initial trashy, classy comment.
The beginning of it all, the beginning of the end, and the end of the beginning. Well, I'm always gonna notice when you've got your little weird cloth bunny ears. So that's. They're very cute. You look like a cute little
Thank
trashy
you.
bunny. So
I love to be a trashy bunny, especially with Easter approaching. My Catholic upbringing really works, it's seamless, really. But I mostly use them when I don't. This is not an ad. I don't know why I'm talking like it is, but I mostly use them when I don't wash my hair, which is like often on almost every day.
These are the real ads. It's like, the Easter bunny is coming to town, so I'm their cousin, Trashy Bunny, and I don't take showers. So
this is how we used to do ads until every company was like, stop calling us trashy and stop comparing us to the Catholic Church. None of this is what we want you to say.
No, my sweet little bunny. It's very nice to see you. I missed you yesterday. I feel like we talked a lot and I didn't see your face enough. So
yeah, we had a meeting and Em was just like, I don't know how to turn on my camera, so you were kind of voice of God in the background the whole time.
I really couldn't figure it out. We were using a different meeting setup
There's
than
like
I'm
a
used
million
to.
of them nowadays. I mean, whatever. We all missed you. Em painted a beautiful picture saying, "Oh, don't worry, I'm in a white robe with the sun setting behind me." I added a cigar for my own taste, and
Sure.
it was beautiful. You painted a picture in my mind, so
Thank you. I wanted everyone to still feel like I was above them.
Right.
In some way. You couldn't see me, but I was going to make sure you could see something. And
right.
so
Of course.
there comes that illustration.
I did see something. Yes.
Was it like a nightmare, a vision of you running forever?
Yeah. It was a lot of night terrors in my sleep. Yeah.
I wanted to thank you. I'm sorry. I feel like I keep interrupting you
Oh,
right when you're about
you're
to say
welcome.
something really wise and sageful, but
Yeah.
I wanted to thank you. For those of you who don't know, Christine surprised me and Eva with a literal bouquet of donuts at each of our doors. And
I'm sitting here going, what are you thanking me for? I didn't send a plunger this week, I don't think.
No, but that plunger has come in use so much in terms of being my new door knocker on the ceiling. No. We've got other plungers.
Good.
But no, because Trey Songs has needed a stern talking to, and he's gotten it on the business end of this plunger by me doing a little ceiling tapping. So
very
thank
powerful.
you.
Yeah.
You're
good.
just full of weekly presents. And anyway, I wanted to thank you publicly that those donuts were some of the best donuts I've ever had.
Oh, really? Oh, good. I'm so glad. Gio.
He's saying, give me some donuts, woman.
Sorry. Ugh. There's Blaze getting mad.
It's fun. It's a fun dynamic because Gio's mad, then Blaze gets mad for Gio, and then you're mad that Blaze didn't get Gio early enough, and then it's like a whole family of anger.
It's just a sweat-filled house. Yeah, it's a sweat and adrenaline-filled house. But anyway, I'm glad you liked your donuts. I was kind of annoyed that they didn't ship from LA to Kentucky, so I didn't get any donuts, but I'm living vicariously. I'm pleased that you liked them. I have never heard of a donut bouquet before, so I'm glad it worked out.
Thank you. Anyway, I wanted to beat you to the punch before I forgot, and that is why I drink this week, is that you treated me to some fine gifts recently, and I feel very loved, so thank you.
Well, you are very loved. I feel like ever since I left town, I have to prove it all the time to you guys. Not because you asked me to, but because I feel insecure that I left you behind.
I mean, if the result is a box of donuts every week, I'll let you feel like shit. That's okay.
You're going to keep like letting me believe this horrible truth about myself.
Oh, Christine, I don't feel loved. What to do?
Send me another toiletry object.
Why do you drink this week?
Oh, thank you for asking. I actually don't drink this week because I am going on a road trip today.
Oh, right. Yes, I'm so excited about this.
Yeah, I'm driving all the way to Lexington, Kentucky, an hour and a half south of me to get my big old needle in the arm COVID vaccine. I'm so excited. I got an email a few days ago and they were like, you have like a window of 2 hours to snag your spot. And I jumped in. Picked it was the only day they had was our day of recording, so I'm sorry I've been like aggressively rushing you guys. I feel like in weird texts like
No,
I'm leaving.
Honestly, we as a unit need this, because do you know how many times we've started beyond, like, late isn't even a word at that point?
No, I know.
Now we're like, we've already got through our ads and everything, and we're 23
Record
minutes. Usually we start at 10. It's 10:23. Like, this is pretty good.
This is actually honestly pretty amazing, and I felt like I was being kind of aggressive about it, but thank you. I'm very excited. Initially I was going to go down by myself, and it's an hour and a half drive there, then you have to get the shot, then I guess they watch you for a half hour, then you have to drive back, and my shot isn't until 6:40, so it was going to be really late. But my sister's coming over to watch Geo. Blaze and I are driving down, little road trip, little couple bonding, while I probably have a fever in the passenger seat, and
as you gain a love for the taste of flesh, as some people might think.
That's right. As I take over the state of Kentucky and become a monster. Yeah. So I'm very excited. I got I'm, as everyone knows, I'm terrified of needles. And I get needles in my arm constantly, like I did Monday for Remicade. And I'm just fulfilling my prophecy of surrounding myself with my worst fear over and over again.
It's your calling. I feel for you when it comes to the fear of needles. I'm terrified of needles, and apparently Allison didn't know that until way late in our relationship.
I didn't know that about you.
Oh, I'm so beyond.
Oh yeah. Ditto.
If I were to get like a wildly invasive surgery, the thing I would care about the most is getting the initial needle to fall asleep.
Yeah, that's always my thing. When I go to a place, I have to be like, I want you to understand that, like, I need you to, like, for my wisdom teeth, I cried for days. I didn't give a shit about the actual surgery. I sobbed about the fucking IV. And I got one the other day on my hand, and it still hurts. It's bruised, as you can see. And it's like, now I've been having this Remicade for 11 years now. And still every 8 weeks, I'm petrified. And it's really terrible.
To be fair, I feel like even if you didn't have a fear of needles before, like, just getting something like that every X amount of days for your entire life is just going to cause an issue with needles.
But everybody says, like, oh, well, you'll get used to it because, you know, at a certain point you just have to give up. And sort of, but not really. I'm still terrified. But anyway, yeah, sorry. So that's a derail. But yes, COVID vaccine, very excited. Blaze has already been vaccinated, so we're going to be hopefully a somewhat safer household.
Nice. Well,
yeah.
RJ has been vaccinated. He's gone through both.
Oh, good. Wow.
Both shots already. I don't know how I don't know how it works, but apparently in California, maybe this is all over, but it feels like a very California thing, that he's a lifeguard during the summer, and so that makes him a frontline worker. Which I don't understand, but
that's
I was
very
like,
beach oriented.
I was like, okay, that sounds very Santa Monica.
Can you imagine if I told Lexington, Kentucky, I'm a lifeguard? They'd be like, please go home. It's snowing outside.
Well, he still has to work, and he works with kids, and I guess since
that's a big one too. Yeah,
I guess because he's a first grade swim coach on top of being a lifeguard. He's like a jack of all swimming trades. And but so I guess since the pandemic started, they've been doing like remote. It's been the funniest thing in the world,
remote
Christine.
Swim lessons
with 6-year-olds.
Stop it.
So right on now. Zoom, they'll like, you know, like float around. Like,
oh my God, it sounds like a scene from Barney where everyone's doing like hand motions.
RJ is the frontline Barney. Yeah.
The new purple dinosaur that everyone needs.
Yeah, so they like fake tread in water or something.
Wow.
He also has been really good about because he also does a whole lot of like manifestation videos and things like that. So he'll do like little workshops with the kids where they sit there and close their eyes and imagine they're in the pool and imagine they're going to beat their last time.
The sweetest thing ever.
And you could hear all these little 6-year-olds go, "Bye, Coach RJ."
Stop
very,
it.
very sweet. So
okay, I would run over there and stab him in the arm myself with a needle. So I understand now why California said, "Sir, get in the front of the line."
I think they're trying to start up the classes in real life. So that's why he
working with kids is definitely like up there in the first phases, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, that was another derail. Welcome to And That's Why We Drink, where we just derail every 5 seconds.
This is the first non-QAnon episode in like a month.
Oh my God. Christine, I'm First of all, the amount of kind words I've gotten.
You did a great job. People were into it.
Thank you. I really appreciate. I really worked hard to make sure I didn't offend anybody. While we actually are talking about QAnon, I have a little bit of an announcement, which I'm not in QAnon.
You're joining
God.
QAnon. It really sounded like you were joining QAnon. Surprise!
No,
you convinced yourself.
No, I've been thinking about it. I haven't seen anyone complain about this, but like I kind of think it's a matter of time if I don't address it. So I'm just going to do it now.
Uh-oh.
And for good reason, by the way. I realized that in the midst of doing first of all, in being a kind person in general and someone who I like to think is pretty empathetic, I should have been more aware of it before, but after doing the QAnon episodes, I'm realizing it was just very tasteless of me that during all this London fog nonsense we've been bringing up, people are calling it the London fog cult, and I would like to rebrand us because I've had my
I didn't
time.
even think of that.
I've had my time in the limelight as a cult leader, and it's been fun.
My turn.
It's been fun, but I think we need to do a little zhuzhing, if you will.
Yeah, I get you. Some brand. What's the word? Restructuring? I don't know.
Yeah, so anything that sounds really professional. That's what I'm trying to do.
Marketing term, I'm sure.
And so a revamping maybe.
Revamp. Yeah, that's the one.
I've decided I've been flirting with a bunch of other group names, and I just want to avoid cults just because I have just discussed for the last several weeks.
Not?
Like, there's a lot of victims of cults out there.
To be fair, I called it a cult too, so I apologize if that was setting the train in motion.
I think neither of us were really aware of what was going on. I think I was just so excited that people were listening to me about the world's greatest drink. But so I have decided on the London Fog Society. And
that's so classy.
I know.
Oh,
it sounds so
man.
swanky. I feel like we should all get membership cards by the end of this.
Yeah, you all gotta have your pinky up when you're drinking your London Fog.
Well, I'll have like a little lapel pin at our chapter meetings by a smoky fireplace.
Oh,
you know?
yes. Your cigar can come back. Your white robe can come back. Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Oh, listen, I circulate that robe in and out of my life in many ways. I see. I need to look like a presence.
Accessory, yeah.
I'm saying. So anyway, the London Fog Society is how we shall now be named. Furthermore, is that how you use that word?
Hereunto, furthermore, we shall be called.
Thus, the end.
Your founding father, Emothy.
But yeah, so if you are to be spreading the good news, I would suggest that you refer to us from now on as the Society. Don't even have to add London Fog Society in there if you don't want. Just the Society.
Actually, I recommend you just call it the Society because I think that alone has its own mystere, you know?
I love it because then you can tell people like, "Oh, I'm part of the Society. Never heard of it? Oh no, it's too grandiose to talk about here. Not here, not now.
Not here, not now."
Yeah.
And
so anyway,
you can take your robe and go whoosh and turn around.
I'm so glad I like painted a picture of me in a robe one time, and now it's been brought up.
Thinking. I like that I got you a tie-dye robe, and instead you're just envisioning yourself in a white, glorious, godly robe.
Yeah, they're two different types of parties.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah,
the tie-dye one's when you're chasing down the ice cream truck, and
that's my after hours robe. That's the party robe.
It's Emothy at night.
Anyway, oh my gosh. So there you go. We're part of the Society now. Welcome.
Am I part of it?
Yeah. You've been drinking. Yeah,
you sounded a little unsure of yourself there.
I forgot that you had been drinking Lennon Fogs, but then I remembered you are obviously part of the Society.
I drank them before there was a contest, okay? I went and had one I walked through snow.
You sure did, Grandpa.
In my bare feet.
Both ways.
To get my classy London Fog with oat milk, okay? Just like Grandfather did, Grandpapa in the olden days.
You know what? I like to think in terms of the London Fog Society, I am everyone's Grandpapa. Grandpapa Emothy. So.
You're certainly my Christopolis' Grandpapa.
Okay. Well, anyway, that is my only announcement. I just wanted to, zhuzh things up. I don't want to be making fun of anyone or anything like that. So, Christine?
Yeah.
I'm
on board.
You just sat so still. It was like it was in a haunted movie with a doll.
You were like, this has never happened. Christine, stop moving and stop speaking. Something is very wrong. I was just trying to tell myself to stop interrupting the flow of the episode. Clearly, I've just created a whole new disruption. I apologize.
My heart stopped. I was like, I'm waiting to like hear a little girl giggle or something. It's very creepy.
My eyes glassed over like doll eyes. Yeah. I apologize. I was just kind of leaving open a window for you to tell me your story for today.
Thank you. That's the first in 4 years between either of us, but I appreciate it.
We let the other talk. Yeah, isn't that fun? No, it's not. Apparently, it's terrible. It doesn't work.
No, I appreciate you trying not to interrupt me as I regularly interrupt you. I'm so sorry about that. Today's program is brought to you by Athletic Greens, the most comprehensive daily nutritional beverage that we've ever tried.
As you all know, Blaze and I have it pretty much every morning now, unless my sister sneaks over and steals it. It feels like a great habit to have because one tasty scoop of Athletic Greens contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source ingredients, including a multivitamin, multimineral, probiotic, green superfood blend, and more that all work together to fill the nutritional gaps in your diet, increase energy and focus, aid with digestion, and support a healthy immune system, all without the need to take multiple products. Why would you want anything else?
I could not tell you. I recently just got more Athletic Greens sent to my house, and RJ got so excited. He was like, oh, Athletic Greens? And I was like, no, this one's my order.
Back
Watch
off.
it. Calm down. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, and contains less than 1 gram of sugar without compromising on taste.
Simply visit athleticgreens.com/drink and join health experts, athletes, and health-conscious go-getters around the world who make a daily commitment to their health every day.
Again, simply visit athleticgreens.com/drink and get your free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs today.
So I think we all have a horror story about furniture shopping. I know, especially since I apparently only buy furniture from estate sales that people have died on. I am nodding very sagely and depressingly. That is why we love Burrow, which is what we have in the shared apartment we have, because Em would never allow me to put a haunted couch in our apartment.
Everything else could be haunted, but not our couch. Not the thing I'm going to take naps on. Burrow is the furniture company designing smarter, simpler things for modern life at home. They built the company from the ground up to address the biggest frustrations with the furniture industry, and I can attest that this couch is tops.
It is. It's furniture that actually fits your life. They have modular designs that make it easy to move, to durable materials like stain-resistant fabric and pet-friendly rugs. Wink, wink. Burrow's in-house design team is focused on making your life easier.
Right now, you can get $75 off your first order at burrow.com/drink. That's Burrow, BURROW.com/drink for $75 off your purchase.
Burrow.com/drink.
Okay, so my story this time is a paranormal story, so everyone can relax for a second. I'm not going to talk about like your personal loved ones anymore. This is from 1981. It is in Brookfield, Connecticut. If you are from that area, you might know the story I'm about to cover. And it sounds like it's a true crime. It is actually a demonic story. This is the trial of Arne Cheyenne Johnson, aka the Devil Made Me Do It case.
What? Okay, I'm so excited.
Aka the Demon Murder Trial, aka the Brookfield Demons case.
Holy shit.
Why can't we all just ever settle on one goddamn name
Never.
for things? Ugh. Anyway, so this is 1981, Brookfield, Connecticut. And at this point, Brookfield, Connecticut had been around for 193 years, had never had a homicide.
What? Wow.
They apparently at this time or around this time, the papers were like raving, like it's been 193 years without a homicide.
That's
like,
called you're jinxing it, friends.
Yeah, someone should have knocked on some wood. Also,
Yep.
it's funny that that's how they're phrasing it, because that's like me being like 28 years without a homicide over here. It's like, well,
it's been almost 10 decades since I murdered anyone. Yeah.
Also, why are you celebrating on year 193? Why didn't you pick like 3 years earlier? Or you were so close to 200 years, you couldn't talk about this in 7 years?
Because can you imagine you get so close to 200, then someone murders someone, and you're like, well, we couldn't have parade is off. Tell the mayor to go home.
That's an excellent point, actually. Someone was like, we're getting too close to...
Dangerously.
I like how they held out for 193 years, though. They were like... something's afoot.
We might as well go for it.
Anyway, so February 16th, there was a 19-year-old named Arne Johnson, who went by Cheyenne. I think that was just like a family nickname or something. So February 16th, 19-year-old Cheyenne stabbed his landlord multiple times with a pocket knife. His landlord's name was Alan Bono, and Alan died later in the hospital.
Oh, no.
Cheyenne was arrested, and 8 months later, he pled not guilty by virtue of demonic possession.
Sure.
Which was the first time in U.S. history that this defense was used.
You don't say.
This is not to be confused, by the way, with the other story of Elva Zona Heister, which we have covered before, where she had already died, and with her, through the Ouija board, she like helps her mom find her murderer or something like that. Mm-hmm. So when people hear "the devil made me do it" or anything along those lines, it sounds a lot like "I know who my murderer is" case, or they just get kind of combined. So that is not the same story. Elva Zona Heister is a different story there. So Cheyenne's attorney, his name was Martin Manella, when they decided to use this demonic possession defense, Martin Manella said, "The courts have dealt with the existence of God, and now they're going to have to deal with the existence of the devil." So just to give you some background, Arne was 19. He was known as Cheyenne by his friends and family. He had a 26 or 27-year-old fiance named Debbie Glatzel, and Debbie is another big part of this story. So in July the year before, the couple had recently signed a lease for a rental property from Alan Bono. And apparently they were super in love. They actually met when Arne was a kid. He was 12 and had like a crush on her. She was older than him. I think Debbie actually became friends with his mom. And so she was always around. And he says it was love at first sight. And eventually when he got older, he asked her out and she said yes. And they have been together ever since. Apparently it's a little touch and go because Arne was 16 and she was 23, but we're going to ignore that because they are still in love to this day, at least.
And when he was 12, she was like 20?
19, I
19?
think. And she was like not about it when he was 12,
right,
to be fair. But,
sure, yes.
But she was about it when he was 16. So
right.
I don't know. I don't know what you want to do with that information. They ended up being very much in love and are still together, I think. So it worked out in this case. So eventually they found this rental property and it needed some maintenance though. So the family was regularly going over and they were going to start cleaning. I think this day happened to be, it depends on the reports. There's a lot of, the details are sort of muddled. So I don't know if it was just the couple and Debbie's little brother or if the mom was also there. It doesn't really totally matter. But Cheyenne and Debbie went over to the rental property to start cleaning it up a little bit. I'm pretty sure Debbie's mom was there and Debbie's little brother David were there. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how weird this is supposed to be. It was like a random fact that I saw and it doesn't become like a big detail, but I guess for the sake of spookiness, it was supposed to be spooky. I guess the previous tenants left a bed sitting in the middle of the master bedroom. The entire place was completely empty, but a random bed was still sitting in a room. And it only felt eerie and creepy once I watched, there's a dramatic reenactment of this story on this show A Haunting, and all of a sudden the bed became like the spookiest thing in the fucking world. And so, beforehand I totally ignored that fact, but if you watch the A Haunting episode about this, you will see that there was a little, I think, artistic license used in the story.
You don't say.
So while they were there cleaning, they asked David to go clean in the bedroom where there was that bed, and suddenly David got pushed onto the bed. And he said that the old man in that room pushed him.
Oh.
And no one else was there.
Okay. I was like, we don't know that man, right? Okay.
We don't know about that man. Apparently nobody was there, but David swears that an old man pushed him onto the bed. And the man apparently had a plaid shirt that was torn at the elbow, and he had jeans. And David said that the man pointed at him and said, "Beware." He said that he was going to hurt the family if they moved onto the property. And when David ran to tell Cheyenne and Debbie about this, they just thought he was like trying to get out of helping clean. So they were like, okay, whatever, like go out in the yard.
It's a very Em and Christine movie. No, you don't understand. There's a ghost. I'm going to sit outside in my robe and have
And Eva's like, please leave the premises.
I've been trying to get you to leave for hours. Please finally get out of here.
That night, apparently, David actually saw this guy again when they got home. So like it followed them home.
Oh, at their, oh God.
Yeah, so they've been staying at Debbie's mom's house while they're cleaning out the rental property. So their version of home right now is Debbie's mom's house.
Right.
So they were all there, and David, the little brother, saw this man again. And this time he said the man was starting to look different. So he was already shifting into something else. Apparently he had burnt looking skin, and he was barefoot. And this time he spoke Latin. And he said, beware. He said he was going to take David's soul, all the classics. And soon David started calling him the Beast. And started seeing him throughout the day. So it wasn't even just like a creepy thing at night. It was happening all the time. Apparently, David said that he could see the beast's, quote, big black eyes, thin face with animal features, jagged teeth, pointed ears, horns, and hoofs.
Uh-oh.
Hoofs? Hooves? Hooves.
Hooves?
Eva?
Hooves.
Okay. I thought hooves.
It behooves you to say hooves.
Hooves. It behooves me to say behoove. Wait a minute.
All
of it's wrong. All of it's wrong.
We don't know this language very well. It's okay.
Yeah, so he started, the beast man kept finding him and saying, beware, don't, move on the property, I'll hurt your family. And David very quickly started changing from a very bubbly, happy kid to quiet and anxious.
Oh.
At the same time, they started hearing noises from the attic that were unexplained, but you never hear anything more about that. So I don't know how that plays into things. Maybe that was completely irrelevant. But there started to be scratches and bruises all over David's body when he was going to sleep at night. So it was like these injuries were just showing up when he wasn't even causing them. And he was now starting to wake up every 30 minutes and have seizures. And he was also having really terrible nightmares. And the family basically had to start taking shifts, staying up with him or trying to hold him down because he would start fighting in his sleep.
How old was he at this point? Do we know?
He's 12.
Okay. Wow. That's terrible.
He started spitting on them. He started kicking them. He started biting the family. He tried to apparently attack his grandma with a knife, according to one report. And he regularly was acting like he was being choked or stabbed by something that they couldn't see.
Oh, geez.
So that's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Here's a quote. That one time he looked, quote, strangled by invisible hands, which he tried to pull from his neck, and powerful forces flopped him rapidly, head to toe like a rag doll.
Oh.
So he told his family what was going on. He was telling his mom about this, and his mom, Judy, said, quote, I believed him instantly. I've read about the supernatural. I've heard the Warrens' lectures, and when he first explained it, I thought it was a ghost. So she's on top of it. She's like
right away.
She was like, all I need to hear is half of that information, and I'm on board to get you help.
Old man, I'm in.
Yep. There's not a man near my house. No. And so David's parents went to their pastor, and the pastor tried to help. I think they did like some blessings around the house or something, but eventually they said, there's nothing we can do here. You should call the Warrens. So, and Lorraine Warren, hopefully you know who they are by now, but they're a very famous power couple, let's call them.
I would say power couple, definitely.
Ed is a demonologist and Lorraine is a clairvoyant, and together they have gone on some of the most intense supernatural cases to try to help however they can. So
are they still alive?
No, they've both passed.
Okay.
But they also happen to live nearby Brookfield, Connecticut.
Right.
So I think they were kind of relatively close, so they could just pop on over because they're from Monroe, Connecticut, I think.
That's right, yeah.
So they called the Warrens, and they called the Warrens 12 days from the first event. And apparently only 12 days in, it was just like awful.
That's fast.
So Lorraine was quoted saying, we were contacted by the family who believed the weird phenomena that was surrounding their child. And here's where it gets kind of weird too, because later I'm going to get into the shadier part of the Warrens, just because a lot of people think that their credibility isn't 100%. And that goes for most of their cases. There's a lot of skeptics.
Right. And
one of the things that people are skeptical of this time is that apparently Debbie and her mom Judy were like big fans of the Warrens, and so
it's not a good look. Yeah,
it sounds like they were just willing to agree to whatever the Warrens were saying. Like
especially when she was like, right away, I was like, it's a ghost.
Yeah,
he's not having real seizures. It's a ghost. Call Lorraine.
And in that quote of hers, she said like, I have seen the Warrens lectures and all that. Like,
right.
So they apparently were just like a Warren fan family. So it doesn't really help that they were probably just willing to believe whatever the Warrens had to say.
Sure.
So in an initial visit with the Warren family, Lorraine said that she saw, quote, a black misty form next to David. Soon the child was complaining that invisible hands were choking him and there were red marks on him. He said that he had the feeling of being hit. David would be doodling and he'd be concentrating, and then he would look up and he would no longer be an 11-year-old boy.
Ooh, okay.
So that was like on their first goddamn visit, apparently, that he was just like, his face was contorting in front of them and only she could see it.
Oh.
And Judy said that she thought originally it was a ghost, but Ed and Lorraine, I guess, educated her later that it actually wasn't a ghost that he was being afflicted by. So the Warrens told the Washington Post. The Washington Post, by the way, had like the longest article on this I could find. So,
oh, interesting.
Shout out to the Washington Post. The Warrens told that paper that, quote, ghosts, after all, are small potatoes in the supernatural scheme of things. I'm down with the small potatoes. I don't need to know anything else. Small potatoes, keep me down here. Sad little spirits that somehow haven't crossed over properly, lingering on in the material world close to old associations, sometimes mischievous, rarely malevolent. This was different. The spirit infesting David Glatzel is inhuman and evil.
Ugh.
So I guess if his face was contorting and they saw a shadow figure behind him or whatever, they were like, okay, this is no bueno.
This is no longer a sad little human or whatever they called a ghost.
This ain't no small potatoes.
Oh, I love small potatoes. So
I do too.
You and I, let's stick with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's stick with all the Walters and all the small other potatoes.
The starches.
Yeah. Walter does sound like if it had to be a type of food, it would be a starch.
Absolutely.
So
isn't gin a starch? No,
oh my God.
Shit up,
is it?
I think it is.
Hang on a second. We're onto something here.
Is gin a okay, the internet's like, what does this mean? Okay, well, vodka is
corn, right?
A starch.
This is like the worst home ec class.
Home ec. Yeah, here's what vodka is.
Or 4-H or whatever kind of class this would be. But no, it's...
I don't know. Yeah. I know that booze is made of starch. So, you know what? Close enough.
Okay, so booze is made of starch. Ghosts like booze. Ghosts are small potatoes.
Potatoes.
Ghosts are starch and like their starch.
This
That's
is
fine.
like 4-H and algebra.
I'm pretty sure we're biologists now.
Oh,
Did you hear that happen?
Yeah. Regular biologists, 100%.
My brain unlocked something. I heard it happen. Anyway.
I think it was just snapping, but yeah, I guess.
It was just my soul clawing to leave my corn husk behind.
Leave your husk behind.
So the Warrens went to Brookfield to investigate, obviously. They apparently brought along a guy named Reverend Francis Vergelick. Ed Warren claims that Reverend Vergelick and them had worked on previous cases together. The Catholic clergy cannot confirm this, which also makes it interesting in terms of if you're on the skeptical side. So they did 3, quote, lesser exorcisms on David, which I guess are more deliverances versus exorcisms. And I'll explain later why they didn't do like an official exorcism. But they did 3 lesser exorcisms on David, where at the time of these lesser exorcisms, they saw him levitating. He stopped breathing at one point. He gave the names of 43 demons possessing him.
Jesus, 43.
Like, what an escalation from 12 days ago when you saw an old man. And now there's 43 demons. Also,
and the old man had jeans on. Like, what happened?
He's not made of starch like the others, I guess.
I guess not.
There is another report that said that he was actually made up of 43 demons and 2 devils, which I found interesting, that the devils and demons were different.
Yeah, I'm clearly not equipped to teach this class anymore, so I'm stepping down.
I'm not a numbers kind of person. I'm more of a meat and potatoes kind of person.
We're a big picture, meat and potatoes kind of folk.
But anyway, because there were potentially 45 entities, if you count the 2 devils, his mom, Judy, anytime she referred to the entities in David, she would call them they. And they them pronouns, hey.
Aww.
We're normalizing pronouns however we have to. However,
if this is the angle that it takes.
If this is what gets you to pay attention, we'll throw in 45 demons, sure. But so apparently Judy started referring to David as they because of all of these.
Ew, that's creepy though.
Yeah. So
that's why I call you they.
I know, Bill. I have more demons.
I have built of 1,000 demons.
I was gonna make a comment about like skeletons in my closet or something, but the built on 1,000 demons is just so grunge. That is so seen and so. Oh my god, I feel heard.
That was the name of my live journal in 2005. Built on 1,000 demons.
If you were the person who had the AIM screen, I don't even know what the name is anymore.
A screen name.
A screen name. Yeah. If you had the screen name built on 1,000 demons, please God, write us your entire autobiography and we will read it on the podcast.
I want to be your friend.
But it was Zach Bagans.
Oh, it was. You're definitely right. I tried to get it, but he had it, so I had to change the S to a Z. But I had the knockoff version.
Obviously, yours was just built on 100 demons. And it was like,
oh yeah, I was like the lesser. Yeah, that's sad. I was like the bargain bin version of
the bargain
a hill of demons.
I'm sorry.
You are built with that. That's why we use they them pronouns. I know a lot of people don't really get it, but I use they them pronouns because they're built on 1,000 demons and 2 devils.
Finally, we can have this conversation. I feel safe enough.
Okay, good.
So thank you for bringing this to everyone's attention.
I thought it's about time.
I kind of want to be known as someone. That's such a badass. I feel like you get to be immediately a Hell's Angel or something.
Absolutely. I think our podcast would take over if let's start this rumor, folks, that this podcast is built on 1,000 demons. I want to get up in the charts. Like Spotify has to create a new category for like featured podcasts that's just called like podcast built on 1,000 demons, and it's just us.
That's like the category is just our podcast 10 times in a row.
1,002.
Oh, right. My bad. Okay. So yes, David and his 45 friends, frenemies.
Yeah. Good point.
Apparently David started in front of the Warren, started hissing. He was having more seizures. He was speaking in voices. He apparently started quoting the Bible a lot, and he was also quoting passages from Paradise Lost, which is very interesting.
Creepy.
I don't know what that means in terms of like demons and ghosts, but I can't do it. So
that's true. I can't do any of that. All of the above.
So the family and the Warrens could also sense whenever, quote, the beast was about to take possession of David. This was a quote of how they could tell. His head would lower to his chest and he would slowly lift it. And when he did, his features would have contorted into a snarl and there was nothing to be seen but the whites of his eyes. And then he would laugh a hideous laugh.
Ugh.
I mean, 12-year-olds are terrifying already. And now imagine that they look down for a second and come back without pupils and they're cackling and their face is all twisted up. No.
Nope. I don't like that. End of story. The end. Period.
The end. Another quote about this time and our hanging out with David. They say the plates have levitated, that rocking chairs have flown through the air, and books moved mysteriously away, and that a cake pan floated straight to the ceiling. The beast has called up David's brother on the telephone and warned him to beware.
Ew.
Ugh, which means like ring ring, who could it be? And you don't have caller ID. It's just your friends.
Oh no.
And to keep going with the quote, and Debbie says she has been clawed by a mysterious green hand rising from the floor and attacking her in her bed at night.
Ugh.
And she, too, has seen the face of the beast. Debbie has said, quote, I saw a face with jagged teeth and coal-black eyes. It had horns and pointed ears. Flashing lights appeared on the wall, and then I heard my mother and Cheyenne call my name. So almost like she was also in a trance from this thing.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden she could hear people calling her name.
Ugh.
There were some more boring instances, I guess, of the 45 living within him. Some of them just had to get the daily chores done because...
Not everyone can be, the star of the show, I guess.
Not everyone can be the beast. So apparently Judy, the mom, said that she would also experience random things like her clothes getting dumped out of her drawers and cosmetics getting thrown on the floor, just like really inconvenient situations. She also said that she would call them punks to their face. Like she would like scream at them about how they're being punks, and she would tell them to go back to where she came from or where they came from.
Okay.
And apparently when David that one time was getting thrown around like a rag doll, this was Judy tried to defend David by saying, he can't even do a sit-up, leave him alone. Like,
Okay, I'm starting to feel like this is personally attacking me.
I'm starting to feel like I am at risk if
Yeah.
I mean, if Allison saw my body getting thrown all over the place like I was a gymnast, and she knows what I'm capable of, she'd be like, something is very wrong here.
Yeah.
Something is
M's
amiss.
body has never moved so quickly and so with such agility.
So limber. Why?
What's going on? It must be many demons. That's the only explanation.
Minimum 40, maximum
Minimum.
50. I can't decide. It's somewhere in there.
It's got to be.
So one day when things were getting really bad during all this investigation with the Warrens, David all of a sudden predicted a murder would be coming soon.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
I don't know how the details, I don't know how specific it was, but I do know that Cheyenne himself was very nervous. So I don't know if that means that Cheyenne was the one that he claimed would be involved in this or whatever, but everyone, let's just say, was disturbed in a little bit. And actually after that lesser exorcism or whatever they were calling it, the Warrens did call the local police, and they were like, yo, so this house is super dangerous, and the kid that is probably possessed by a demon is now like screaming references about violent acts in the area, so like just like be aware.
Well, that's why the freaking newspaper put out that article, because they were like, well, we got to do it now.
Did you they were like, we've got to pull this trigger, we don't have much time.
The guy, it's like
Christine,
listen, I studied journalism, I know a thing or two. Okay, not very much.
Christine, you know a thing or two about a thing or two. You really just figured that out. That makes so much sense now.
It's like that movie The Post, where isn't that
It's exactly
Ruffalo?
like The Post. It's exactly like The Post.
Where he goes to his editor and he's like, you gotta listen. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I fell asleep on the plane while it was playing, so I'm not maybe the best person to reference it, but
I do like to think Mark Ruffalo went to Brookfield, Connecticut, and was like, you got to listen.
This is our moment. This child is predicting the future. And so the parade went ahead as, or how many, 7 years early.
It really, I mean, you really just blew my mind, because that probably is exactly how it went down. Because it happened a few weeks before. They called the police and warned them a few weeks before that it actually happened.
One savvy journalist was like, I've been waiting to write this story my whole career, and I gotta do it before my chance is over.
And that journalist was Mark Ruffalo. And
or Christine, like, in a different
Christine's ancestor being like, something about this feels like it's gonna surpass generations. Okay, wow. Well, we've solved that fucking riddle, haven't we? Okay. What's next? Oh, yeah. So the Warrens did warn the police, as we all know now, and apparently the local press. And the Warrens do say that after everything that happened and of those exorcisms, there was one report that said it was actually 6 exorcisms, not 3.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with 3 because I saw that most. I think it was 3, but there were 2 priests at each, which equals 6 priests. Math, I don't know.
Why is this all about equations and formulas?
If I knew that I was going to have to know this much math for fucking telling ghost stories one day, I would have paid attention.
That's what they should say in algebra. That'll get the youths.
You need to know how to count so you know exactly how many demons are inside of you.
You want a podcast? You gotta learn some basic addition.
And also take a health class so you know about starch.
Yeah.
So when the exorcism was over, they called the police, and the Warrens say that the biggest mistake that happened out of all of this was that Cheyenne, who was involved in a lot of the lesser exorcisms, he started to challenge the demons inside David, trying to coax them out of David.
Ruh-roh.
And Cheyenne was apparently, he was very protective of the family, and he hated seeing David in pain, and so he was saying like, take me, I'm bigger, all this stuff. Also, this sounds very reminiscent of The Exorcist, which Debbie and her family have also said they loved that movie. So I don't know what that means, but there you have it. But yeah, so Cheyenne kept saying, come into me, leave the little lad alone, which is precious.
Little lad.
The little lad.
Okay.
And once, while challenging these demons, apparently he said something like, I'm not afraid of you. I'll fight you. And David, who could see these demons, said back to Cheyenne, they're laughing at you.
Can you imagine 45? How many was it? 45 total?
Can you imagine going around the room being like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Yeah. Okay, they're all laughing.
All of them are laughing.
Every single one of them. You are the laughing stock of this room.
How sad.
You're a clown. So anyway, after he challenged them, nothing really happened. But a few days later, all of a sudden, Cheyenne got in a huge car crash where he, according to him, lost complete control of the car and watched it drive itself into a tree.
Oh, God.
Again, if you're on the skeptical side of things, you can be like, okay, he got in a car crash and now he's blaming it on related events. But he swears that like he was not in control of the car. He tried to control the car and it yanked itself into a tree. Shortly after that, a few days later, so he ended up being unharmed, by the way, but only a few days later, him and Debbie went back to the rental house and they were looking out the window. And Cheyenne, apparently, when he looked out the window, was looking in the direction of this well on the property. And apparently it was a well that the Warrens had told him not to go near because the well was one of the sites where David had seen the old man. And because he had challenged the demons, they were like, you're too vulnerable right now. Don't go near any of the sites where David has seen any of these demons.
Right.
So Cheyenne was on the property and just looking at a well, but he wasn't near it. But while he was looking at it, he all of a sudden kind of fell into this weird trance that Debbie remembers. And
I thought you were going to say he fell into the well. I was like, how? I thought he was... Okay.
He was just looking out the window.
Trance.
His eye line fell into the well, I suppose.
Okay.
And he said, there he is. The beast, there he is. Ugh. And all of a sudden he started growling. Ugh. And Debbie started slapping him to try to get him out of this trance, and he didn't react. And so that is when Debbie remembers him all of a sudden also becoming possessed by this demon.
Oh, no.
So Cheyenne, he said, there he is, there's the beast, because he saw like the demon hiding in the well. And according to Cheyenne, when their eyes met, him and the demon's eyes in the well, that was when he last remembers having like a clear... autonomy, autonomy for himself.
Oh, no.
Right.
Yeah, I think
so. I don't know anymore.
Sure.
So after that, apparently he doesn't remember much, but Debbie says that he started showing signs of possession. Specifically, there were 5 really scary times. She didn't list all of them, but she did say one time in the middle of the night, he woke her up and stared at her and said, go to bed.
Yeah.
Even though she was already in bed.
Like, you woke me up. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then after he said go to bed, he got out of bed and started hitting all of the furniture and yelling about hell. Another time they were at mass and he started freaking out about being there, which was very out of character for him. He was like very much a happy churchgoer.
Yeah.
Another time Debbie heard 2 voices come out of his mouth at once, and that was the day that he killed Bono.
Ugh.
Yeah. So let's talk about that day. Their landlord was Alan Bono. He apparently, when they were looking for a rental property and he offered a space for them, he also happened to manage a kennel, and Debbie was like, oh, I'm looking for a job. And so she started working for him at the kennel while they also were cleaning out his rental property.
Okay.
And I guess he knew them. They were very good surface level friends where he would like take them out to lunch every now and then. So like, even though Cheyenne didn't work for him, sometimes he would like call sick into work just so he could go visit Debbie, and then he would take them out to lunch and so things like that.
Aww.
Around the time that Cheyenne was showing all these signs of possession and growling and going into trances and not knowing who he was, on February 16th in 1981, Cheyenne called in sick to go visit Debbie at the kennel. He brought his sister. I think he also brought one of Debbie's sisters and Debbie's cousin, because they all wanted to go, since she worked at a kennel, they all wanted to see the dog. So I'm imagining this was just a precious scene. And Bono decided to take them all to lunch. And this is off of the little sister's testimony. So one of the girls who was there.
Okay.
Bono took them to lunch. Depending on the report that you read, either Bono was drinking by himself or Cheyenne was drinking with him. And when they got back to the kennel, Bono was being belligerent and he grabbed one of the kids, and I guess Cheyenne got defensive. And according to Wanda, the sister, she said that he didn't look like himself. She tried to like shake him to like kind of wake up from his like weird state, and he wouldn't move. He just stared straight ahead and eventually just charged at Bono And
God.
apparently on him, he had a 5-inch pocket knife. And then his sister remembers him just kind of staring off, not reacting, and walking off into the woods.
Oh, my
and
God.
she remembers seeing Bono just standing there and then falling over.
Oh.
And apparently he had stabbed him a lot. And Cheyenne's lawyer later said that there were 4 or 5 tremendous wounds, including one that extended from the stomach to the base of the heart.
Oh,
It's
my
like
God.
Sliced.
Yeah, because you think of
all the
pocket
way
knife,
through.
you think of like little Swiss Army, but 5-inch pocket knife. Jesus.
Yeah, it's basically a 5-inch, just a knife at that point.
Yeah. At that point, yeah, I guess you can put a butcher knife in your pocket too, but
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, Cheyenne was arrested and Bono ended up dying hours later in the hospital. When he was arrested, Cheyenne told cops that they were fighting over Debbie, although there's no real proof of that. And the cops originally wanted to consider this an open and shut case, but the Warrens heard about this and they said, no, like, please look deeper into this, especially since we warned you that there would be a death coming up in a town where there had never been a death before. And I guess David confirmed that his vision was involved the family somehow, like knew that someone in his family was going to be involved in this death. David apparently, quote, saw the beast go into Cheyenne's body, and it was the beast who committed the crime. So that was the testimony they really fell into or leaned on.
right.
And so the family told the police that Cheyenne had visited the well before the murder when he was told not to. His lawyer apparently tried to get Cheyenne a plea of not guilty by reason of demonic possession. So the lawyer, again, his name was Martin Manella, and he found 2 cases in England where possession had been used. Neither of them ever made it to trial, but he used those 2 cases as reasoning for why they could use it right now.
Right.
And Manila said, quote, I could put the Pope on and he'd tell you that if a guy is demonically possessed, he is not responsible. And that was his big reasoning for
That's
all
like
this.
a threat, like a parent makes. Like, I could bring the Pope. Don't make me bring the Pope in here.
Exactly, yeah.
Don't make me turn this car around and visit the Vatican, because he'll tell you.
Don't you dare. Don't you fucking try it. So the trial was on October 28th in 1981, and apparently the priests from these, quote, lesser exorcisms were supposed to be subpoenaed, but the church ended up ordering them to not publicly discuss their practices.
Love the church, how they can just do anything ever that they want ever. Love it. Love it.
Say it with me. Thanks, priests.
Thanks, priest.
So the Diocese of Bridgeport, they said that we're not going to say anything except that the priests did work with David during a difficult time. That was all that they said.
Okay. I've been to a Catholic church in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Have you? Maybe they know these. Maybe they know
Maybe
you.
I do.
They were like, oh my God, it's the Trashy bunny. Run, quick.
Oh, no. She's back and it's Easter Sunday. Get her out of far, far away.
No, the Trashy bunny comes on Easter Saturday, and we all know that. So of the people in that church, Father Nicholas Greco in the Diocese of Bridgeport, this was his official statement. The policy is not to speak to the press at this time. It would be true of any situation of a pastoral nature. No formal exorcism was ever asked for or performed. No one from the church has said one way or the other what was involved, and we decline to say. Apparently, their reasoning for never performing an official exorcism, which is what some people might be wondering, is because apparently the bishop declined to authorize it because the family didn't consent to the psychological tests that the church would need. But the family disputes that and says, like, we literally took him to a psychiatrist.
Right. Good point.
They apparently, when they did take him to a psychiatrist, all they found was that David had, from what I can tell or from what I see in the reports, a, quote, slight learning disability and trouble sleeping. I don't know what
That's
psychological
like less
tests.
than you and I have, and we don't have
I
any
know.
demons. I mean, you have 1,000.
Well, I literally, hello.
I have demons with a Z, so I don't really count, but yeah.
You have emotional demons, I think.
Certainly a lot of those, that's for sure.
But so the family was like, we took him to get psychological testing, and I'm not too sure of like the details on that, but it sounds like they got the wrong psychological testing, but the church wouldn't help them figure out what testing they needed to be able to get approved in the first place. So
Weird.
That was a weird argument. Also, the Warrens are disputing that when Father Greco said no formal exorcism was ever asked for or performed, the Warrens are like, no, we fucking asked for that. Like, we wanted that.
Yeah.
And Ed Warren said that the priests did, in fact, ask if they could do an exorcism. And this is a quote from Ed Warren. The 2 younger priests went directly to the bishop. We have it on tape. We hope that the priests will do what's right and come in and testify. If they don't, we will have to subpoena them to testify, and we will have to use our tapes to prove it. Apparently that didn't work anyway. They ended up not saying anything more. But the police chief, his name is John Anderson, and he also wanted to speak to the priests during this investigation. And he does confirm that the Warrens called him in advance to warn them about like these references of violent acts from David.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, he was really hell-bent on making sure that like this got taken seriously. First of all, it was the first homicide. I kind of imagine as a police chief and like there's never been a homicide in your town and now there is one. You're like, mother.
And it's not even just like, oh, somebody like a robbery, a botched robbery. It's like, oh, it's your first homicide, and also it was because of a bunch of demons and a possession. I mean, damn.
There's a quote from him where he said, after like 193 years since the town has been established, not a homicide. And he goes, we couldn't have a simple, uncomplicated murder.
Exactly. Like you couldn't even have just a straight, like, yeah, black and white botched robbery situation. Nope.
Well, also this was like this was a few years later, but this was, I think, right around the time of or was it? It had to have been after the Amityville, right? The Amityville case was in the 70s.
Yes.
Which also makes me wonder. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No.
Wasn't in the Amityville, didn't the DeFeos like claim demonic possession? And they're...
Yeah. Or didn't the boy say like he murdered his whole family because he was possessed by demons?
So is this not true in being the first? Maybe this is the first documented one?
Well, it was in the town, not in the state, right?
They're saying that this is the national first time.
Of demon possession, you're saying.
I don't know. We'll have to look back at that.
I don't know. Was that claimed in court, like as the defense? Because maybe he just claimed like insanity.
I think that's probably maybe what it was. Yeah. I don't remember at this point. Wow, I really should know.
Well, it's been a long time since we covered that.
Since episode 4.
Was it 4? Wow.
Yeah. Okay, well, anyway. Yeah, imagine being the police chief of a murderless town, and now it's on your shoulders, and also it's full of demons, apparently, the story.
And the Catholic Church is involved. I mean, God.
Also, because the Amityville story had happened so recently and it was pretty nearby.
Right.
He was terrified as the police chief that this was just their town was going to become the new Amityville.
Right.
And so he was like, not only am I dealing with a murder, which, yes, I'm probably well trained for, but I've never had to deal with before. Also, like, I broke the fucking good curse, I suppose. And now there's demons. And now also, like, people are flooding our town because they think it's the new Amityville, especially because the Warrens are involved.
Yep.
So it was just not fun for him. So he was really desperate. He was like, I want the priest to talk to me. I want anyone to give me information because I'm at a loss here.
Yeah.
But so anyway, that never happened. And the last thing I want to say is that, so Martin Manila, the attorney, and also the Warrens were both mocked at different times for trying to sensationalize the story for their own gain. The Warrens have dealt with that a lot in their history, but also the attorney was guilty of doing that too. He was just saying some really weird things where it just sounded like he didn't really care so much about the case. Maybe he cared about winning the case, but he didn't really care about the family at all. He was just like invested in the fact that this was a wild story that would like really make his name get out there. In terms of trying to defend Cheyenne, this was a quote of his. Why the devil decided to pick on Alan Bono as the instrument of Arne Johnson's destruction? Think about it. What's the guy's name? Bono, right? And what kind of name is Bono? Italian, right? So what does Bono mean in Italian? It means good, and evil likes to destroy good. Apparently for him that means case fucking solved.
What?
It sounds a little QAnon-y of like, let's just like connect all of these little things.
Hang on, there's a dot like 83 miles to the west. Let's just put a pin in that and then drag his red string all the way back here.
Yep.
I mean, that is okay. Sure. All right.
He also wanted in court, he also wanted people to examine Alan Bono's clothing because he thought, quote, the lack of any blood rips or tears would help support the claim of demonic involvement. I wasn't there, but I guarantee there were some rips in clothing and blood, considering he was sliced from the stomach to the heart. So I don't know what that guy was talking about there.
Yeah. Or did he mean in the kids' clothing?
I don't know. I think he wanted them to look
Bono's
at
clothing.
Yeah, in Bono's clothing, in the victim's clothing.
So he was saying, oh no, a demon did it, so he didn't ruin his clothes. Okay, whatever.
He also said, quote, the wounds in Alan Bono's body were too deep for them to have been the work of human hands, end quote. So he was really pushing for like, no, this is demonic possession. And the judge ultimately rejected the plea because, quote, any testimony on the matter was unscientific and thus irrelevant. So Cheyenne ended up getting convicted of first-degree manslaughter and sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. He was released in 5.
Damn.
And Lorraine Warren, because if you've listened to me talk about some of her other cases, she likes to rank her cases out of 10 in terms of scariness. And she ranked this 9.5 out of 10.
Oh, shit. Wow.
Because the only thing that would have made it a 10 is if there was another catastrophe, apparently.
I thought you were going to say one more demon. She's
Just
one short.
46 is where I draw the line. She does have like a category, like a some sort of ranking system, and I guess very few of them ever hit in the 8s or 9s because that requires a true full body possession or a death.
Jeez.
Something like that. I don't know the actual rankings, but 9 is pretty hard to get, and this was a 9.5. Cheyenne ended up marrying Debbie while he was incarcerated, and as of 2014, they were still together. Manila and the Warrens have both, again, said some shady stuff. I mentioned this earlier, and prioritizing going to the press with the story. Manila has been quoted saying, everyone is interested in this case. Everyone. We got calls from Australia, from Switzerland, from England, everywhere. When I went to London, they recognized me on the street. All the top studios are interested in this. All the top producers. Of course, my position is that we won't talk to them until the trial is over. My client is very important to me. Okay.
Okay. Slick.
And then Lorraine Warren, which is not a cute look. Lorraine, when asked about this, she said, will we have to write a book about this? Yes, we will. Will we lecture about this? Yes, we will. And then asked if they were talking to movie producers, she said, no, we're not. Our agents at William Morris Agency are.
Shut up.
So,
okay. All right, Lorraine. Calm down.
And when challenged on selling books and profiting off of these families, she said, why not inform the public? In informing the public, you are warning the public about trespassing in the supernatural. And then her husband said, instead of the church hiding facts, they should be yelling them from the rooftops. This low-key nonsense, I just can't stand it anymore. You mentioned demonology to a young priest and he almost grins. We're bringing home the positive, the reality of God, because that is the other end of the spectrum. So
I think that would have been a much slicker way to handle the situation. Let him speak next time, because Lorraine saying, oh, my WME agents are going to handle the movie producing is like not the greatest look for your validity.
It's not cute. They ended up writing a book about it called The Demon from Connecticut. And she said that the profits were going to be shared with the family, but apparently only like $2,000 was given to the family. The book was republished in 2006, and David himself and his other brother Carl sued for, quote, violating the right to privacy, libel, and intentional affliction of emotional distress.
Oh, wow.
So there are some arguments that this was just the brother Carl. Others say it's the brother David, which makes this a lot more damning because David was involved in all this. Right. But either way, Carl was definitely suing them. Carl, maybe David, also said that the case was a hoax, and the Warrens said that the book would make enough money to help Cheyenne get out of jail, and that's why she should write the book, and that she would help them get Cheyenne out of jail. Carl ended up writing his own book called Alone Through the Valley, which was about his version of the events. The Warrens say that the Warrens, in response to getting sued, they said that the priests involved believed that the boy was possessed and that all the events were true. And their author of their book, called Gerald Brittle, said that he had hours of interviews from the family proving that they wanted the story told, and they agreed on the story before he ever sent it out. Cheyenne and Debbie, on the other hand, defend the Warrens as well, saying that Debbie's family is just suing for money, but the possessions were completely true, and they themselves were used as the main interviewers in that Discovery Channel episode of A Haunting. The two of them told their entire story. Then again, that episode was wildly exaggerated and they gave it the green light. So I don't know what that tells you. But David or Judy or no one else was there. It was just Cheyenne and Debbie telling their side of the story, and it did seem very dramatic. There's also 2 movies, one from the 80s called The Demon Murder Case, which stars Kevin Bacon and Andy Griffith.
Oh, hell yeah.
And this summer, the 3rd spinoff of The Conjuring is going to be based on this story.
Oh my God, really?
So it's going to be called The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, and it comes out in June.
Ooh, I just got goose cam. That's creepy.
The end.
Wow. What is up with Connecticut, man? They are just haunted as hell.
I mean, there's the haunting in Connecticut,
Yeah.
the demon from Connecticut. Next door is the Amityville. We got a lot of stuff going on.
I married someone from there. A demon, indeed.
It's almost like it was kismet at this point.
It's almost like I knew that that was a haunted state, and that's why.
This smells haunted. Let's go.
Okay, well, thank you, Em. That was spooky.
Thank you.
Believe it or not, we are heading into spring, Emothy. Spring.
Whoa, Christopoulos. That's pretty crazy. Hang on.
It is.
Whoa.
And the only reason I can time out my seasons is because FabFitFun sends their seasonal boxes out, and then I know what season I'm in because they send me products for each season. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying because I also get FabFitFun. Don't worry. I see now I'm picking up what you're throwing down. FabFitFun is passionate about showcasing amazing women. You can choose from a wide variety of products when you order. Most things in my living room, kitchen, and bathroom are from FabFitFun over the years. Also, I recently made a TikTok that went a little viral, and it was because I was using a FabFitFun blanket, which is a very odd way to use FabFitFun, but it worked out anyway.
Was it the Unhide?
Everyone was like, I see that FabFitFun blanket.
Order your spring box today, and you can maybe go viral on TikTok. Like, I'm just kidding. They don't promise that, but the blanket is worth it. Order your spring box today. Sign up now so you can snag amazing products like the Unhide blanket, or I've been using these Say Beauty rounds instead to save the environment, and take care of my skin. When you customize your box,
use coupon code DRINK for $10 off your first box at www.fabfitfun.com.
That's coupon code DRINK for $10 off your first box at www.fabfitfun.com.
Flex is innovating period care with products that are body safe, made for comfort, and made to keep you moving.
As someone who gets a period, I know how difficult it can be to use traditional products to figure out what works best for you. I've been obsessed with my Flex products. If you want a product that looks out for your body, your lifestyle, and the planet, by the way, you have got to try Flex. Honestly, I'm singing it from the rooftops.
The Flex disc is a one-time use menstrual disc that fits perfectly inside your body, and one Flex disc can be worn for up to 12 hours and holds as much flow as 3 super tampons.
Yeah, so it's not a cup. It's not like any other period products you've actually seen before. I had never seen anything like it. And it reduces waste by 60% compared to pads and tampons, which is amazing. The other product that I love from them, if you want to go zero waste, is the Flex Cup, which is a reusable cup made with a velvety soft material. Super comfortable. You don't even realize you're wearing it. It's 100% reusable and lasts for years. If you've ever thought about trying a menstrual cup, this is the one that I recommend.
So say goodbye to leaks, mess, and stress, and say hello to healthier periods for people and the planet with Flex.
Go to flexfits.com and use code DRINK for 20% off Flex Disc starter kits or 10% off your first Flex Cup, plus free US shipping.
That's code DRINK at flex, F-L-E-X, fits.com.
I have a story for you today, and it is noodles all the way to the top. Noodles all the way to the top. That was a bunch of noodles falling off. Hold on.
I was going to say,
noodles all the way to the top.
it sounded like you had noodles in your mouth. I was like,
yeah,
oh,
they were
shit.
falling everywhere. I'm so sorry.
I love it.
I shouldn't talk and eat at the same time. This is the story of the infamous White House Farm murders.
I don't know anything about this.
I didn't either, so oops. But it is fascinating. So this took place in the 80s as well, in 1985, in a small town in Essex, England called, I believe I'm pronouncing this right, this is how it seemed to be pronounced in the series I watched, Talshant Darcy.
Okay.
36 years ago, in a crime that horrified and stunned the nation, 3 generations of the Bamber family were murdered in their own farmhouse.
Okay.
So there's an HBO series about this. I don't know if I think it was initially on Netflix, but it's now on HBO. It's called The Murders at White House Farm. It's pretty recent. I binged it. It's 6 episodes. I really liked it. I thought it was and it's obviously based on this story, so it's based on a true story. Very creepy, very well done. There's probably some dramatization, like maybe they put a bed in or something.
Maybe
with that show.
You know what? Some notes said that bed was a water bed too, which makes it extra.
No, why didn't you tell me that? That's the most horrifying fact of all.
The water bed really was like just the peak 80s, wasn't it?
Did you know my stepmom has been trying to give me a water bed since I moved here? Like, she keeps threatening to hire a truck to bring it to my house.
My mom was a huge proponent of the waterbed, and then she was the first person to be like, now, as someone who lived that trend, let me tell you how fucking stupid it was.
It's
and if
terrible.
it ever comes back, don't you ever touch it. Because, like, Obviously, fucking accidental floods in your house. Also, there's like just mold growing inside there.
Yeah,
because
they're
it's just
disgusting.
it's awful. Also, like no lumbar support. LOL.
I mean, it's
All bad. It's all bad. It's all sloshy.
They're terrible. I've slept on several because my stepmom is to this day a proponent of waterbeds, and insists that I need to take her waterbed. And I'm like, where is it? And she said, it's in the shed. And I said, when did you buy it? And she said, 1989. And I'm like, it's been in your outdoor in Ohio in the woods shed since 1989. No, thank you. I'm not
The
interested.
lining of that is probably so thin that the
Can you
second
imagine?
you even pick it up, it's going to fall apart. That's awful.
It's just going to be filled with only mold, like solid. Maybe a better lumbar support with the mold inside it, but
just take it and throw it away. Just tell her you're going to take it.
No trace of irony. Like, she is insisting upon it, and I'm like, do you not hear that you're trying to make me take your gross ass waterbed? And she's like, it was very expensive. And I was like, yeah, in 19... Okay, I'm done. Anyway.
Before we learned how inexpensive it should have been. Yes.
Yeah, before we realized what a waste of freaking money that was. So anyway, so there's an HBO series. I really liked it. It's based extensively on a book written by one of the people involved in this case named Colin Caffell, and his book is called In Search of the Rainbow's End, and then another book that was written about the case called The Murders at White House Farm by Carol Ann Lee. So I'm just going to tell you what happened that night and in the months following. It is bonkers. So in the early hours of August 7th, Chelmsford Police Station received a call from Jeremy Bamber, the son of the Bamber family. He was 24 years old. He called the local police station and said he had gotten a phone call from his father at around 3 a.m. He said his dad had rung in a panic saying that Sheila, his sister, so there were two. I mean, I guess I'll just tell you now who's involved. So there's
please, yes, I would like to know the names of the characters.
Well, I was gonna bring it in a more dramatic way in a couple bullets, but I might as well tell you now. So 2 grandparents, Neville and June, and then their 2 children, Jeremy and Sheila, and then Sheila's 2 kids who are twin boys.
Jesus, that's like all the Duggars. Hang on, can you say that again? Wait.
Yeah, so 2 grandparents.
Okay.
2 kids and 2 grandkids.
Oh, okay, so that's less.
I was like,
awful.
It's really not anything like we have more family members than our own have families. But yeah, so Neville and June are the grandparents. Then there's Sheila and Jeremy are the kids who are adults, like in their 20s. And then there are 2 twin boys who are 6 years old who are the grandkids.
Got it.
So that's who's involved in the story. So Jeremy, the son, calls police, says his dad, Neville, called him at 3 a.m. in a panic saying that Sheila, the daughter, had gone berserk with a gun. He says during the call, the line had cut off after the sound of a gunshot, which obviously made him panic about his family's safety. So police were sent to White House Farm to investigate. So when they got there, they noticed that the house had been locked from the inside. And by the time police finally made their way in, they were met by a horrific scene. They found the corpses of the 5 family members with what they counted to be a total of 25 shots having been fired at them.
Oh, was it 5 per body?
No, it was a mixture of 8 to the dad. I mean, it's...
My thought was if it was like just one and done on 4 of them and one of them was really shot, it would like be more of a personal attack. I didn't know. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was quite a mix. So the bodies included, now I'm going to give you more detail about them. So Neville and June, 2 61-year-olds, their daughter, 28-year-old Sheila, and her twin sons, Nicholas and Daniel, both 6, all shot at the property. Neville was found in the kitchen, slumped over a chair, with evidence of a struggle surrounding him. June was found on the floor of her bedroom with Sheila's body nearby, and the 6-year-old twin boys, Daniel and Nicholas, were found in their beds and appear to have been killed in their sleep.
Jesus, at least it was in their sleep.
Yeah, I mean what the officer said. Like the only glimmer of like hope in this whole case is that they died instantly.
Right.
But obviously, just the most traumatic, gruesome situation. So Sheila was found holding a gun, a .22 caliber rifle, which was determined to be the murder weapon, and it was lying on her chest, pointing towards her neck where the bullet had gone through, and she was also holding a Bible. So Sheila had a history of mental health problems, mental illness. She'd been known to have psychotic episodes where she would bang her head against walls, sometimes even become violent. And she and Jeremy, her brother, had both been adopted by the Bambers as babies, but from different families. She'd been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, and this was something that was kind of kept quiet by her family. They were kind of traditional, didn't like this news to get out, but she was greatly suffering from her illness. So doctors described her as believing that she had been given powers by the devil, and she believed she could project evil onto others, including her 2 sons. And she thought that she could project evil onto them and make them be violent. She had in the past spoken about taking her own life, but at the time, doctors didn't believe she was a genuine risk to herself or others. And actually, she had been hospitalized several times, the last of which was only months before the murder. So she'd actually just gotten out of the hospital a couple months before these murders took place.
Wow.
So when she was discharged, Sheila was put on strong medication. She had to have a monthly injection of like an antipsychotic drug. It had a really strong sedative effect. She was pretty miserable, but she was kind of forced to be taking these really strong drugs. And her mental health issues were believed to have been worsened by her relationship with her mother, June, who also had severe mental health issues. Some people tried to make that connection, but they weren't blood related. So there may have been a connection, but it wasn't genetic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, got it.
It's reported that Sheila didn't think June, her mother, who was extremely religious, agreed with her lifestyle, which included partying and drugs. She also worked for a while as a model. And when Sheila was 17, she fell pregnant by her then boyfriend, Colin Caffell. But June and Neville, her parents, arranged an abortion for her. So the relationship with her mother became pretty strained after that, if not like completely destroyed. And then when June, her mother, found her sunbathing naked with her boyfriend, it just got way out of control. And like I said, the parents were really religious, so this was just not okay. She'd already gotten pregnant. She was doing drugs. She worked as a model. None of this was flying with the parents.
It wasn't godly.
It wasn't godly, and to the point that June started calling her own daughter the devil's child.
Well, that's healthy.
Super good. Yeah, super not good relationship. And after the abortion that her parents basically arranged for her to have, Sheila suffered several miscarriages before marrying Colin, and then they had their 2 twin sons, Daniel and Nicholas.
Okay.
However, Colin had an affair, and the couple split only 5 months after the boys were born. This also marked quite a decline in her mental health. She was pretty unstable. She was hospitalized several times. And up until their death, the boys were pretty much in custody of their father.
Okay. Got it.
So a week-long visit to White House Farm had been arranged for August 1985 at the request of the Bambers, the grandparents. They wanted Nicholas and Daniel to visit with Sheila before going on vacation to Norway with their father. So Daniel and Nicholas told their dad they did not want to stay with their grandparents, and they were very against staying there. They said they didn't like it there. They didn't feel comfortable there. June made them pray on their knees. They were uncomfortable. On their way in the car, they told their dad, like, we want you to talk about this to Grandma. And they were only 6, so they were really scared. They didn't want to be there, which makes it even sadder that this happened only a few days later. And Daniel, I guess one of the boys, had become a vegetarian and was worried that his grandparents would force him to eat meat.
Aww.
So when they dropped him off at the house on August 5th, the father was like, you know, it'll be okay, you'll be fine. But obviously he had no idea he would never see his twin sons alive.
Oh my God, can you imagine the guilt? That poor
No,
guy.
yeah, it's just so heavy and awful. Like, how would you ever expect that, you know? Tabloids labeled the murder "Suicide Girl Kills Twins and Parents." This was, like, wildly sensationalized. I mean, this girl was a model. I shouldn't say girl. This woman, 28 years old, was a model. She was known to be occasionally do drugs. She had just been hospitalized for schizophrenia. She now murdered her parents and her kids. I mean, it was just like the perfect storm for a small town story
That's a media buzz right there.
Completely.
I mean, just every buzzword is like exactly what she was hitting. So
yeah, it was like mental illness, quote unquote. She went crazy.
Exactly.
She killed her own children. She's a model, so she's beautiful. They could use the photos of her, you know. I mean, it's just like extra icky. So they called it "Suicide Girl Kills Twins and Parents." That was kind of the label it was given almost immediately. So 9 days after the murders, mourners packed the small village church to celebrate the lives of June, Neville, and Sheila. And then the 2 young boys' funeral was planned for later on. So
I like that they had a separate funeral for the kids.
yeah, I thought that was kind of nice as well. They had their own ceremony.
And also that way you could make it, you could make sure there was less risk of there being like media being super disrespectful, and like there could be like maybe a more closed family ceremony.
Exactly, that's a good point. And like I said, the grandparents were really religious, the boys were not religious, their father was not religious, so he could have his own funeral for them separately, right, while obviously his ex-wife or his ex-partner and her family had their own like very Catholic funeral, or I don't know if it was Catholic, but it was very religious. At least one nice part of this. So Jeremy, he's the only surviving member of like the immediate family. He's the son, who's 24, and he arrived to the funeral, Jeremy did, with his girlfriend Julie Mugford and his extended family members. So as this procession is going toward the church, he has a breakdown. He has to be propped up by Julie. He is devastated. He's grieving. There's still photos available of like the funeral. And to the world, he appeared completely devastated and emotionally destroyed. Mm-hmm. As you may have guessed, I used a fun keyword here called appeared devastated.
Yes, I did pick that up, and I didn't know where we were going, but in terms of storytelling, I was intrigued. So.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're intrigued, because I'm about to go straight into that. So family members, even though on the outside, Jeremy seemed, to the media at least, very devastated, something wasn't sitting right for family members. So Colin, the father of the twin boys and Sheila's ex, claimed as soon as the camera stopped rolling, Jeremy changed. So in his book, Colin said that his brother-in-law started cracking jokes and laughing after the funeral, and he later told the Telegraph that Jeremy started making comments about how he couldn't wait to get back to the house with Julie and have some fun.
Oh.
And then in the car on the way to the crematorium, he started kind of flirting with Julie, telling her what he'd like to be doing to her later in the afternoon, like in front of the whole family.
Sir, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Chill out. It's a funeral.
His parents' and sister's funeral.
Oh my God.
And Colin said about this, really sick, and I thought there's something weird going on here. And like, remember, literally his 2 6-year-old boys have just been murdered, and the mother of his children. It's just really kind of off-putting. So the funeral was broadcast on the news. Obviously, so many people tuned in to watch, to see Jeremy's reaction to his family's murder. It went viral for the time and drew, like I said, a whole host of media attention. And the author I mentioned earlier, Carol Ann Lee, remembers that she was interviewing different police officers during the case, and one of them even said that his daughter at the time was so interested in Jeremy because of how he looked, like he was like a handsome guy. Uh-huh. And the daughter was saving the newspapers and asking her dad, like what is Jeremy like in real life?
Oh my God.
Because he was now all over the media. He was this devastated son of this family, and
feels very Ted Bundy.
Yeah, he's like charming in that sick way that draws attention, but within his own circles, people are like, no, this guy's fucked up. Let's see. What was Jeremy like? Well, I'll tell you. So, like his sister Sheila, Jeremy was adopted by June and Neville when he was only a baby, but like I said, it was from a different set of parents. He was put up for adoption after his biological mother, a student midwife, had an affair with a married army sergeant, and they actually later went on to marry and have other children. Neville and June adopted Jeremy when he was 6 months old. They sent him to a range of good private schools, private boarding schools. However, Jeremy wasn't happy at any school he went to. At one school specifically, he was subject to bullying and a sexual assault. And after his studies, Neville paid for Jeremy to go traveling in Australia and New Zealand, where he's said to have attended a scuba diving course, broken into a jeweler's, and boasted about smuggling heroin.
Oh, okay.
That escalated very quickly from
sure did.
Like you're showing like a PowerPoint slide of your photos to your family, like scuba trip.
How I spent my summer, like your your like
third grade
report.
presentation. Yeah, scuba diving, and then all of a sudden it's like bags of heroin. Yeah, so kind of quite an escalation.
It's not funny.
But so there was like obviously some family drama there, and like I said, they're not the type of family to talk about their skeletons openly. And so even while he was in Australia and New Zealand, his dad had to send over money to kind of bail him out when he got in trouble. So they were not super proud of him for that reason. Meanwhile, their daughter is really, ill, and there's just a lot of like hidden stuff that they tried to keep behind closed doors.
Right.
That is now basically coming out once this murder happens. So when he returned home from his wonderful trip, his relaxing vacation,
You know it well. You know it well.
You remember the PowerPoint, the spinning word art, custom animation, whole thing. It's pretty powerful stuff, I would say.
I would say so, for sure. The clip art of heroin was really fun, I think.
I love how many options they provide for that.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's like Clippy just lets you pick from a whole range.
It's like, I see you're making a report. Are you going to be discussing heroin?
Hard drugs?
Burglary? Oh, well, maybe you could find this link.
I have just the thing.
Zillennials are like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I know. Sorry, had to be there. So when he returned home in 1982, Jeremy's father continued to provide for him. He set him up with a cottage, a car, gave him a percentage of the family company, even gave him a job where he was paid £170 a week. So it seemed like Jeremy was basically being taken care of by his parents, but he had some issues with his family. So let's just say he always felt like his sister was loved more than him. He felt like he was always kind of the outcast, even though his parents were like continuously bailing him out, supporting him financially.
He was being loved unconditionally. At least it seems. Seemingly, I don't know.
Yeah, seemingly. He just had a lot of issues as far as like feeling like he was the second fiddle, so to say, to his sister.
Oh.
So, like I said, something wasn't sitting right with Colin, the father of the two boys. At the funeral, Jeremy was seen laughing and joking after the burial. He was seen coming down the stairs in a Hugo Boss suit, which he opened and pointed at the label where it says boss and said, "That's me now. I'm the boss."
I'm the boss. Now that's not Hoboken
it's
style,
not Hoboken
baby.
style. At a 6-year-old's funeral, not quite. Maybe.
Oh shit! Oh, I
day.
did not realize it was at a funeral. My bad. Okay, that's not Hoboken style. That's not Hoboken style.
We're still at the funeral.
I totally removed myself from that as soon as I heard an opportunity to talk about being the boss.
No, yeah, I mean,
I
was
take
not the boss.
it back.
You can be the boss, but he was not the boss.
I take it back. I didn't mean it. Okay, sorry.
So Colin noticed that in the days after the funeral, Jeremy was wanting to go out partying. He was like spending all this money he had gotten from his parents' death. In fact, shortly after the funeral, Jeremy traveled to Amsterdam with his girlfriend Julie Mugford and a friend. He spent a ton of money on weed. He even started selling and giving away his parents' property from the farm. So like he had an antiques dealer come over right away and started selling off their basically like priceless family heirlooms and furniture and his dad's army medals.
He's like not messing around this
He
guy.
does not give a shit.
Wow.
He even sold his mom's car. Oh, no, sorry. He gave his mom's car to his girlfriend, Julie's mom, and he tried to sell his dad's car in the newspaper for £900. He put an ad out. Like, he's just trying to rake in as much cash as possible, buying himself suits, taking vacations, spending money on drugs.
I mean, also, like, I don't know if it's because we just hear stories like this every week, but, like, how did he not think that was going to not be a good look?
Yeah, I think he just didn't.
He just wasn't thinking.
Well, I think he was just one of those guys, one of those murderers that we see who just thinks they're invincible. Like he's just has this idea in his head that he gets to do what he wants because he deserves it and things are going to go his way. And yeah, spoiler alert, they kind of don't eventually.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to tell this story, would we?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you about it later. But, you know, people do get away with shit.
That's true. Okay,
bad police work and that kind of thing. And that was a huge problem. So, I mean, I'll tell you about it. But he but let's just say there was definitely some possibility that he was going to get away with it. Like some pretty strong possibility. So as the weeks went on, his behavior got stranger. He found photos of his sister Sheila, like her modeling photos, semi-nude. He met with a British tabloid and tried to sell the photos.
Oh, my God.
Yes. Okay. And he demanded £20,000 for the photos, which were taken, like I said, during Sheila's modeling career. And the tabloids refused it, surprisingly, but instead published an article called Jeremy Bamber tries to sell nude pictures of Sheila to
you.
the Sun newspaper, which I was like, wait, that's a way better story, and it's free.
Like, honestly, now I love the press. Like, I'm loving
For
the press
once.
today. Like, they're on the right side of history.
To be fair, they wanted to buy it, but he was asking for 20,000 pounds, and they were like, we don't have 20,000 pounds. And I mean, there's a reason they met to buy the photos of the nude sister who had died.
That's fair. That's okay.
So, like, they did meet, but when he asked for 20,000 pounds, they were like, are you joking? We don't have 20,000 pounds to give you for some photos. And then he said, well, fine, I'm going to bring them to somebody else then. And so then the next day they ran an article like, okay, we can play this our own way.
Let's rephrase then. I don't entirely love the press, but I really respect their sassy choices in terms of rebuttal.
It was a great twist. I didn't really see it coming.
It was a nice volley. It was a nice rally, if you will.
Yeah,
like a back and forth.
Yeah, they came back pretty hard, and I thought that was a really great return because I didn't expect it. I was like, because of course they're going to buy the nude photos. If you'd given them the nude photos, they would have run them. But I just love that they went with that instead. So it's probably worth noting at this point, as I like to say a lot, everyone grieves differently. There's no like only one way, healthy way to grieve. However, selling nude photos of your dead sister right after her murder probably isn't the most classy way to deal with.
It's definitely a more extreme way to handle it.
Yeah, I would say it's not Hoboken style, but I'm not the expert.
Look, no, it's certainly not Hoboken style. Let me take this moment again to apologize to the cake boss. I didn't mean it. I wasn't paying attention. I should have. I'm sorry.
I tried to insert not.
You tried, and I was too ready for the opportunity to say that's Hoboken style.
Speaking of volleyball, I really set you up there to spike that, and we kind of miscommunicated where the ball was going. Yeah, so while people do grieve differently, this is pretty much, in my opinion, particularly callous and quite frankly somewhat evil in my opinion. And it wasn't just Colin and their close family who started to become suspicious. So one police officer had watched the funeral and felt Jeremy's breakdown was staged. He pointed at him on the TV and said, that's who really did it. Basically the whole mini-series is kind of telling the story of this one police officer named Stan, who the whole time is like, something is off here, because pretty much from the get-go this was ruled a murder-suicide. And so Stan was the guy who from the beginning kind of said, something's off, we have to take a closer look. He was getting like railroaded by the police saying like, you're going to be fired if you talk about this anymore, we're closing this case, and so
snaps for Stan.
I know, and I wanted to bring that up because at the end of the miniseries they say, like, he never really got the commendation or anything he deserved for keeping this case going.
Right.
But so, yeah, snaps for Stan. So Stan the whole time was like, something is up with this kid. I don't feel good about this, even though basically everyone else at the time was like, keep it down. We've got this handled. Don't tell us we're doing a bad job. This is clearly an open shut case. Anyway, it was only when Jeremy's relationship with Julie, his girlfriend, began to crack that the truth started to really come out. So she got pissed when Jeremy started seeing other women, like, very openly. I don't know how true this was, but in the miniseries, they kind of had they had a guy visit from New Zealand that he had supposedly met on his trip, that he was lovers with. And so, again, I know that the show was also a drama miniseries, somewhat fictionalized, so I don't know how true that is, but it was pretty clear that he kind of didn't give a shit about Julie either, and I mean, that's not surprising.
That makes sense to me in terms of like, this guy already thought he could get away with everything. The real final test was like taking advantage of the person who's probably his closest confidant, right?
Yes, and he kept calling her his best friend. I mean, it was very clear that he was using her, and she clearly like loved him, and he didn't really care.
And was he doing things for her through all this? I can't remember. Like, was he buying her stuff too?
Yeah, so they went on vacation together to Amsterdam. Okay. He had bought her a new dress with some money he had gotten in the series as well. I don't know how true this is, but the officer, the sergeant Stan, was very kind of wary of her because she seemed like she wasn't saying something that she knew, and seemed kind of like quiet and troubled almost.
Got it.
So it was when Jeremy really started fucking around on her that she got pissed. A month after the murders, it was September 7th, 1985, Julie went to the police and said, I have to change my statement. So previously she had told police that Jeremy's version of events was true, that he had phoned her on the night of the murders, worried about his family. But in this new statement, she confessed that Jeremy had told her before the murders that he was planning for a while to kill his family. She said that Jeremy had told her he wanted to get rid of them all. And on August 6th, he had spoken to her about the crimes and the hefty family inheritance of £500,000 being up for grabs. And he called her and said that it was tonight or never. At this point, they're kind of like, so you knew in advance that your boyfriend was going to murder his family and you didn't say anything. And her response was always, I loved him, which is like, this is not a healthy situation.
So is she now considered an accomplice and in trouble herself?
No, because essentially the only thing they got her on were she did lie to the police, but she had also brought them their guy. There wasn't much she was really part of except omitting details or omitting the truth from police. So yeah, she had taken a month before she came forward, but it wasn't enough for them to like imprison her basically. Instead, they just used her testimony in court. So Jeremy was arrested the next day after Julie's new statement was taken. Obviously, this turned the whole case upside down. Publicly, people were like, how on earth could it be Jeremy? Like, wouldn't the police have noticed this before? Like,
right.
If he killed his whole family, why are we only hearing about this now, a month later?
Right.
Well, behind the scenes, there were some things that the public didn't realize. First of all, the crime scene was never fully secured or properly searched. There was entire bouts of evidence that were never recorded.
Oh.
And the police were so convinced that Sheila was the killer that within days, they just started destroying the evidence because essentially Jeremy said, they said, well, what do you want us to do with this house full of stuff? And he said, oh, it's too painful. I want you to burn it all. So they burned the mattresses, they burned the clothes, they burned everything.
Genius, but also like, like that's terrible. And
it's almost
meanwhile,
like
I was gonna say that Stan guy is laughing in the corner, being like, "I fucking told you! Like, come on!" Like,
yeah, and it was actually really horrible to watch because they're burning all this stuff, and it was a whole month before this woman came forward. So this whole time, Stan's watching them just burn evidence, and he's like, "I know this isn't how it look, or like this isn't how you guys are saying it looks." And you're burning all the evidence that we could use to put somebody else behind bars. And so it was like it was really frustrating to watch.
Wow. You weren't kidding, because I said earlier, like, how could he possibly get away with this? And you're like, oh, did. He really almost did. Wow.
Yeah, it's scary. And I mean, if he had played his cards better and not acted like such a fucking narcissist, he probably could have easily gotten away with it. If he hadn't like taunted his girlfriend and like brought lovers over to their house and like basically made out with them in front of her and just mentally like anguished her, and that's probably not a verb, you know, like totally taken advantage of this like weird invincibility he felt, he probably could have gotten away with it.
That's terrifying. It's wild to think that there's so much crime out there that probably could absolutely be gotten away with if someone just didn't do that one last thing, or didn't decide to have their confidence elevated that much that day.
Yeah, it's like that narcissistic, like, flew too close to the sun. He felt too powerful, invincible, and it came back to bite him in the ass. But like after a month, he was basically like, I got away with this. He was vacationing, he was buying himself new suits, and they were burning all the evidence. So it was like, shit, you know. It was
that's insane.
It was really scary to watch. And again, this is a really small town, like you were saying about the Connecticut murder. Like, this isn't normal that a whole family is massacred,
right? And
this woman had just gotten out of a mental hospital, for lack of a better term, and had been known by her doctors to be violent and thought her kids had the devil in them. So it was, to them, pretty cut and dry. So
totally understandable too.
Yes,
like, I get it. Like, I wouldn't fight them on that. So
yeah, and remember, like, the house was locked from the inside. That was a huge point in the case that I will explain later. But when they got there, the house was locked, and that seemed pretty open and shut to them. But not to Stan. Thank God for Stan.
Big Stan.
We Stan.
We don't. We're the stands. We're the stands of Stan.
Welcome. We're the stands. Thanks for having us tonight. So anyway, so they started burning mattresses, clothes, etc. pretty immediately. Anything with blood on it, they were burning to help with Jeremy's mental state and his trauma. They burned bedding, carpets, so as not to upset Jeremy. The rifle that had been found on Sheila's body was moved several times by officers who weren't wearing gloves.
Oh my God.
Not examined for fingerprints until weeks later. There were photos from the crime scene that showed the gun in multiple locations when, like, nothing should have been touched, obviously. And several pieces of evidence, such as the Bible found with Sheila, were never examined at all for fingerprints or anything. They didn't even examine Jeremy's clothes. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So we were, like, caught up enough on technology that, like, investigating a crime scene was supposed to have happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was the mid-'80s, so
like, they should have known.
Should have been taken.
Okay, I'm just making sure that, like, I get it was like a cut and dry case for them, but shouldn't they have still, like, collected something?
Yeah, and that was a huge controversy as well, of just like the officers who arrived on scene didn't secure it properly, which we see so many times. I mean, even to this day, that if they show up and they're like, this was a suicide, and that's the mindset, and nothing's secured, then it's like, from then on, everything's tainted. Yeah. Even if they realize later that they could have been wrong. So yeah, it was just from the start, it was approached poorly.
Right, yeah.
Oh, poor Stan. So Jeremy's clothes weren't examined until a month after the murders, and officers who dealt with him wrote their statements weeks after the events or weeks after talking to him. Sheila's, June's, and Neville's bodies were released within days of the murders, and Jeremy, had them all cremated.
Oh my God.
It was so infuriating to watch.
Okay.
And remember, they were really religious. They don't want to be cremated. That's not what you do in the Catholic Church. You get buried. And so
excellent point.
It was shady in and of itself, but also once you burn an entire body, there's not much else you can test for, you know?
Right.
So he had them all cremated. And so, of course, you're hearing this. It's like, how had he gotten away with this? Well, like I said, Jeremy was kind of a charming mofo. He sweet-talked the police from the beginning. Carol Ann Lee, who wrote that book I mentioned, interviewed quite a few of the police officers who worked on the case, including some of them that had shown up that night. And they said that the way Jeremy talked about Sheila, his sister, was not very pleasant. He kind of perpetuated this idea that she was crazy, quote unquote, had breakdowns to prime them. Because before they even went into the house, he was like, oh, well, my sister just got out of the mental hospital. She's, quote unquote, crazy. Right. She's dangerous. So, of course, he was priming them from the start to think that Sheila had done something terrible. And that's just kind of what they ran with without thinking of other options. Why not?
Yeah. Jeez.
Why not?
Yikes. Oh, my God.
So what was taken as fact then later came into question. So the first thing that kind of became a turning point in the case was the phone call that Jeremy had made to police on the night of the murder. So when Jeremy had called the police, he didn't call the equivalent of our 911, which is 999. He didn't call 999. He found a telephone book, like a Yellow Pages, and went and found the local police station's number in the phone book and called that number. And apparently, at least according to the series, underneath it, they had him read it in court. I don't know if this was just a dramatization or what, but in the phone book, apparently underneath the police station's number, it says, if this is an emergency, call 999. And yet still called the local police station. You know when you call your doctor and they're like, if this is a medical emergency, please hang up and dial 911.
Yeah.
Sort of like that, where they're like, don't call your local police station at 3 a.m. if your whole family's being murdered. Like, call emergency numbers.
Yeah, so, for sure suspicious.
Yeah, so strange from the get-go. So instead of 999, he went through the phone book, found the number of the local police station. He told everybody he thought it would be better to keep it local, whatever that means. And
keep it in the family.
Keep it close to the vest.
Yeah.
Which also doesn't make sense because, like, you're wasting time finding the phone book, looking up a phone number.
Right.
What? Nobody.
Just dilly-dallying.
Just dilly-dallying left and right. Mm-hmm. Noodles all the way to the top. So.
Noodles.
Oh, the other part was that he said his dad had called and said his sister was going berserk with a gun. But they're like, well, if your dad called you and said, oh my God, your sister's going berserk, she's killing us all, wouldn't you call 999? Second of all, wouldn't he have called 999? Why is he calling Jeremy to say your sister's going berserk?
That's a good point. I was going to say, wouldn't you be able to see phone records of them talking to each other? But that's so much smarter. It's
so apparently they don't keep phone records of calls made. There was a whole thing about that where they don't keep phone records made within a certain... I don't know the details, but that was part of it too, where they just weren't able to track that. But yeah, so why would he call his son to say, I'm about to get shot in the head? Strange. So now there was the idea of whether Sheila could have used this gun. So Sheila was not experienced with firearms. Colin, Sheila's ex, was interviewed on a podcast called The Murders at White House Farm. And he said, I know Sheila never fired a gun in her life. When I found out it was a .22 rifle rather than a shotgun that killed them, another friend who is a marksman said that if she never fired a gun in her life, she would never have been able to kill someone with a .22 rifle. You need to be a good shot, and every bullet found its target. There were 23 or something bullets, which would have meant reloading the rifle, which she would never have had any idea how to do. As soon as that was pointed out to me, I knew she couldn't have done it at all, ever. Because what you need to point out to an American audience is that people in Great Britain don't know about firearms. We don't have gun laws. It is illegal to carry a gun. Farmers are allowed them to shoot vermin. That's it. So Jeremy, on the night that the police came, told police, hey, my sister knows how to shoot a gun. We used to do target practice together. And later on down the line, every single person who knew Sheila was like, no way, she didn't shoot any guns. She didn't know how to shoot a gun. And they asked Jeremy, like, didn't you say that? And he's like, I don't remember ever saying that. So totally changed his story. Jeremy's team disputed this, saying, well, she lived on a farm, so maybe she did learn how to carry or how to shoot a gun. But it's just most people who knew her were like, no, like, she has a perfect manicure still after this whole murder. Like, she didn't shoot 23 bullets directly into everyone's head. Like, it's just not. And especially because the drugs she was on were very... drowsy-inducing, right? Yes. They were, what do you call them? Tranquilizers. And they also caused her to shake a lot. So she had a lot of trouble even making herself a cup of coffee, lighting a cigarette, let alone like shooting. She's not going to load a gun 20 plus times. Yeah, and like shoot people directly at their target, you know? So yeah, it was really not likely. She also, fun fact, was not wearing a dress with pockets. So she would have had to somehow store the bullets that she was carrying around the house. Yeah. And shooting with two hands. So also kind of unlikely. So like I said, on top of all of that, the medication she was on made her very unsteady, shaky. They were tranquilizers. It seemed more and more likely that in her state, she would have, even if she had gone quote unquote crazy or had a psychotic episode, that she would have even been able to physically pull this off. So the next staggering piece of evidence in my mind is that Sheila had been shot twice. So twice in the head. Oh, so she didn't do it. So very, very, very unlikely that somebody who had shot themselves once in the head would then be able to shoot themselves again in the head. However, the coroner did say he has seen it before if you miss and, you know, it's more like a flesh wound than actually through the spine or the brain. So it is possible. So for a while they just went with it because the coroner said, I've seen it twice before. Oh. So it is possible, technically. Okay. However... Now, this is okay, actually, I don't want to say it yet because it's just a really crazy fact. I'm going to get to it when it's more of a surprise. Okay. So, on top of all of this, Sheila's body wasn't found with anyone else's blood or residue on it, which if she killed 4 other people, you would think she would have had at least some of their blood on her. So, now there's the fact of the silencer. So, if you think about it, if somebody's shooting the family members and the boys are still in bed... It was sort of like, how is he shooting all these people? Or sorry, how is Sheila shooting all these people without waking anybody up? But the gun had not been found with a silencer on it. And strangely enough, Neville, the grandfather, had always kept the silencer on the rifle. The cousins of the family were kind of like, well, this is odd because if she had been shooting everybody, they would have woken up and this silencer was always with the gun and now it's gone. Right. So the cousins went digging around, and on August 10th, they found in Neville's office the silencer. Oh. It was found in a gun cupboard, and it had blood on it and a gray hair. They called the police.
Wow.
They called Stan, and Stan came over, and they were like, look what we have. And he was like, oh, God, you guys have been touching this, huh? And they were like, yeah.
Stan is like, motherfucker.
Every time.
Are you kidding me?
Every time. And it gets worse because they give him the thing, and he's like, I didn't bring any evidence bags. So he puts the silencer in a paper towel tube and tapes up the ends because, like, sure, you don't want to touch it. But the gray hair fell off on the way to the station.
God.
So they lost the hair. And at first they're like, well, this is a hunting rifle. There might be blood on it. It's not that abnormal. But they tested the blood and found that it was Sheila's. And remember, this is on the silencer they found in a gun cupboard. So what that means is she would have had to shoot her family, shoot herself with the silencer, taken the silencer off, gone and put it in the gun cupboard, gone back upstairs and shot herself a second time without the silencer.
Right.
So at first everyone's like, well, how do we even use that as an argument? Like, what does it mean? Well, fun fact. If you put the silencer on the gun, it adds quite a bit of length. And they determined that at, I think she was 5'6" or 5'7", if she had held the gun to her throat, to her chin, with the silencer on it, she would not have been able to reach the trigger.
Interesting.
So it was only once the silencer was removed that it could be placed in a position where she would be able to shoot herself in the head.
Got it.
So it's almost like either she, for whatever reason, removed the silencer, put it away in a cupboard, came back and shot herself, or somebody else just shot her, then said, oh, I want to stage this to look like she killed herself, but I need to remove the silencer so it looks like she could actually pull it off.
Right.
So Jeremy, he told the police that his ex Julie was lying because she was jealous because he had broken up with her, and she was just basically, they framed it as a woman scorned. And to be fair, it wasn't a good look for her because it had been a month. She hadn't said a word against him. Now he dumps her and goes off with another person. And suddenly she comes to the police like he did it. Not a great look, at least
not at all.
The defense was very easily able to take that and be like, oh, you're just jealous. And this is the 80s, you know. They were able to turn her into kind of like this crying, dramatic, desperate girl who just wanted to get back at her boyfriend who left her.
Oh my gosh.
So not a super good look, but she was their main witness, so they basically had to go on her word and prove that Jeremy had done it, not Sheila. So Jeremy was released on bail on September 13th, and pretty immediately he went to Saint-Tropez for a vacation where he partied it up, hooked up with people, had the time of his life. And he returned to England on September 29th, where he was arrested and charged pretty immediately with the murders. So Jeremy's trial began on October 3rd, 1986. It lasted 18 days, and basically the prosecution argued that Jeremy, motivated by hatred and greed, had left his family's farm around 10 p.m. on August 6, 1985, after having dinner with his family to drive home. Later, sometime in the early hours of the morning of August 7th, he had returned to the farm on his mother's bicycle, which he had borrowed a few days earlier, taking a back route that avoided main roads. He approached the farmhouse from the back and entered the house through a downstairs window, took the rifle with the silencer attached, went upstairs, shot his mother, June, in her bed. She actually had managed to walk a few steps before collapsing and dying. He then shot his dad, Neville, in the bedroom too, but Neville was able to get downstairs where he and Jeremy fought in the kitchen before Jeremy shot him 4 times, twice in the temple and twice to the top of his head. He had also shot Sheila in the main bedroom next to her mother and had shot the children in their beds as they slept. And that was done last. Again, he had the silencer on, according to their argument. Jeremy then arranged the scene to make it appear like Sheila was the killer. He discovered that she couldn't have reached the trigger with the silencer attached, so he removed it, returned it to the gun cupboard, then just like sprinkled in a little religious theme by putting a Bible on her, which, you know, she had that history of having delusions of the devil, so he really played right into that and made it look as though she were in that kind of a headspace when she committed this murder.
Yeah.
So after removing the kitchen phone from its hook, he left the house via a kitchen window. They think he may have showered. first, and then he was able to bang the window from the outside. This is what they learned later, so that the catch dropped back into position and you couldn't open it.
Oh.
So the cousin figured this out, and she was like, well, who else would know this like trick about the house unless you grew up here?
Right.
Essentially, you could climb out and then like bang it so that the latch fell and locked the window.
Right.
So that's how he was able to make it look as though the house had been locked from the inside. He then cycled back to his house on his mother's bicycle, called his girlfriend, Julie, then called the police from the phone book at 3:26 a.m. to say he had just received a frantic call from his father. And to create a delay before the bodies were discovered, he, like I said, hadn't called 999. He drove really slowly to the farmhouse, and then he told police that his sister was very familiar with guns and was dangerous, so that they would be reluctant to enter.
Right.
And would call for backup before they entered the house. So the prosecution further argued that Jeremy had not received a telephone call from his father at all, because the way they figured this out timing-wise is that Neville would have been shot in the mouth before this alleged phone call took place.
Got it.
So they were like, well, when your father called, did it sound like he had been shot in the mouth? And
right.
He was like, I don't remember. And they were like, this is really shady. If you're saying your dad called, well, we just found out he'd been shot in the face like twice and in the mouth.
Right.
So this seems very unlikely that your dad called you, on top of everything else.
Yeah.
So on top of that, there was no blood on the kitchen phone. And if he had been shot in the mouth and the face and he was calling his
surely
son,
would have been something.
you
Yeah.
think there would have been some blood. And interestingly enough, they actually found June kind of crawling toward the other end of the bedroom. And at first they were like, this is so weird. Why would she have crawled in that direction? What's over here? What was she trying to get to? Well, they found the phone downstairs in the kitchen unplugged. But when they looked closer at the nightstand, they realized there was like a square where the sun hadn't bleached the table. And it turns out the phone was usually on the nightstand. And someone had removed it from the bedroom before shooting her.
So she was trying to climb to
get to the phone.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, that's so sad.
I know. And so there was no phone there. It was instead downstairs with no blood on it. And another fun fact is that when he called police, he said, oh, my dad called and the phone line went dead, or the phone hung up, and then I called police. Well, they found out that the line had never been interrupted, and if the line is still on the hook, or if it hadn't been interrupted, apparently the person on the other end of the line, so Jeremy in this case, would not have been able to dial out until that phone had been hung up.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So essentially that line had been kept open, even though he said like, oh, somebody
Right.
hung up the phone or there was a shot and the phone died. But it turns out he wouldn't have even been able to make a phone call for like another 10 or 15 minutes. So Jeremy's defense maintained that the witnesses who said Jeremy disliked his family were lying or had misinterpreted his words. Jeremy kept insisting he loved his sister and he loved his parents. His defense also said Julie had lied about Jeremy's confession because she was jealous. No one had seen Jeremy cycle to and from the farm. There were no marks on him, no blood on him, no clothing was ever recovered that had blood on it. And finally, they said he didn't drive to the farm as quickly as he could have because he was afraid. Which I was like, well, that's not really a defense or like an argument. That's
right.
Okay. Sure. So on October 28th, after deliberating for more than 9 hours, the jury had not come to a consensus. So the judge agreed to take a majority ruling, which basically means 10 out of the 12 jurors have to agree on a ruling.
Okay.
Basically, everyone was like, well, shit, because this means the odds are not good. Because if 10 out of the 12 jurors have to say that he's guilty for it to go through, otherwise he's off the hook. So amazingly, shockingly, the jury, 10 of the jurors found Jeremy guilty, the majority of 10-2, which was the minimum required for conviction. And the judge sentenced him to 5 life terms with a recommendation that he serve a minimum of 25 years. The judge said, your conduct in planning and carrying out the killing of 5 members of your family was evil almost beyond belief. In December of 1994, Home Secretary Michael Howard told Jeremy he would remain in prison for the rest of his life. And since his conviction, he's sought appeals in 1989 and 1994 for claiming that the trial judge was biased against him.
Okay.
Good one. But it was denied both times. The Essex house and the site of the murders was not demolished, as you might expect of a terribly gruesome crime scene, but instead it has now been turned into the home of a classic car rental company.
Oh.
So
Fancy that.
You want to order a Bentley for the day? I guess I know where to send you.
We certainly know a place.
I know a place, and maybe a ghost will join you on the ride because
Right.
It's probably haunted as hell. Mm-hmm. So the case has recently gained traction because it's the subject of this miniseries I mentioned called White House Farm, or in the U.S. it's called The Murders at White House Farm. It was released last year. It's now available on HBO. I binged the whole thing. I stayed up to like 3 a.m. watching it. It's so good and so creepy. And it just puts, I mean, you know, they say like, sure, some of this was dramatized. Some names were changed because, you know, for sake of privacy.
Sure.
But just the way they present this whole storyline is so compelling and well done. I highly recommend it. There's a lot in the 6, God, how many? It probably was like 5 hours worth of TV. And so there's a lot in there that obviously I was not able to cover. But it's really well done. So until this day, Jeremy Bamber, who's now 60 years old, maintains his innocence as he serves his lifelong sentence in Yorkshire. Colin, the father of the 2 twins, went on to train and practice in the field of bereavement and psychotherapy, which I think is really cool. Wow. Yeah, and he continues a successful career as a sculptor and a potter. And also in 1999, he remarried and started a new family. So he was able to kind of find some peace and closure. But that is the story of the White House Farm murders and some fucking asshole named Jeremy. Piece of work.
Whoa.
I know,
wow.
Right? Isn't that horrible?
That was a good story, though, in terms, like, you told it very well.
Thank you. I felt kind of bad because I was like, I don't know, after watching that series, it was so dramatic and, like,
yeah.
Obviously they turn it so, like, you don't expect things, but, you know, it's harder to tell in a
well, it's also
audio
hard
setting.
It's also hard to tell too, because if there really is that many hours of information,
right,
you feel bad that you're not giving all the information.
Yeah,
so.
and also on that note, I didn't know what was added for dramatic effect and what was real, so I didn't want to throw in facts that I didn't find elsewhere in my research without confirming that this actually happened and it wasn't just added for effect. But yeah, everything that I mentioned here was pretty much what happened. Pretty fucked up stuff.
Wow.
To murder your whole family. I mean, it reminds me of the Menendez brothers of, like, do you know that story at all?
Yeah. I remember,
and, like,
also, like, 2 years ago, like, they came back, there was, like, a whole documentary about them that people freaked out about, right?
Yeah, I think it was on HBO. They did a series on them.
Because they're 2 brothers who killed their parents and got away with it for a while, right? And then
they murdered their parents. I mean, I'll cover it someday, but yeah, they murdered their parents and then, like, bought cars and clothes and just very
similar. Not
sneaky behavior, not subtle or discreet.
Elaborate behavior.
Yeah. Apparently Jeremy told his girlfriend at one point, I should have been an actor.
Oh, ew.
Isn't that icky?
Gross.
God, what a piece of shit.
Well, thank you for telling it. And I am apologizing again to the cake boss. That was not Hoboken style of me.
To the cake boss?
For when I mentioned the
I'm apologizing to the people who died at the funeral.
Yes, that too. Let me just apologize to everyone, because that was just trash of me.
Why don't we just give a blanket apology to everyone ever?
Maybe we should just do that at the beginning, middle, and end of every episode.
Maybe, yeah, our episode could just be one massive apology, start to finish.
Let's just do a whole episode where we just say, we're sorry for an hour and a half.
Just layer it, put a beat under there. Beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. You get it.
Jazzy.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. Again, if you were once a former member of the London Fog cult, we are now members of the society.
Emothy.
Shut the fuck up.
Do you know how many people were probably screaming that on the other end of the...
I got there, everyone. I got there.
Holy shit. If anybody tweets at us, hey, you missed an opportunity, we know you didn't listen to the whole episode. We'll catch you.
Perfect. Anyway, we will now be joining as the Society. I'm very excited about it. Yeah, you can check out everything on our website, and that's howydrink.com. You can send your topic suggestions there, your story submissions there for our listeners episodes that we put out on the first of every month. Also, please join our Patreon. We're doing some fun stuff. I'm doing Tea Time Tuesday, London Fog Friday. We're doing Sneak Peek Saturday. Love a good alliteration.
Alliterati.
And in the next week or two, if you are a member of Patreon, you can expect the newest escape room. So that'll be super fun.
Drama.
think that's about it,
That's everything. I'm about to go get vaxxed up.
Hey, all right.
Hey, that's
And
Hoboken style, baby.
That's Hoboken style, baby. And
That's
why
we
drink.
Yay.
One day we should finish it with, and that's Hoboken style,
Oh,
baby.
that would have been good. Well,
Okay,
next time.
end the episode here.
The end.